Good morning. Today is the 28th of September 2023 and apologise for being a little bit late on. I had a bit of a technical issue getting the stream started. Okay, let's crack on. On my screen is the MES 1 hour time frame. I'm going to go to the daily before we start and just have a look at what we saw yesterday. Interesting to see that there is a bottom tail which rejected the 200 moving average, which is what we talked about yesterday as well. I'll just get my pen open. Where's my pen? Get there in the end. Epic Pen's great when it's working, but because I use multiple desktops, I might have opened it out when I flicked between desktops earlier, and so I just need to reload the app. Hopefully it's here now. If not, I'll just... Here we go. That's good. So what we're looking at is this 200 moving average, and yesterday we came through it, and we'll get to this yellow line in a second at 42 to 77, and we outright rejected the 200 and we closed above the 200. Also we came down into this demand zone, and I had this daily area. The solid yellow line shows me where I put in my daily areas, and you can see over the last few months we came in, it was bottoms of candles over here, roughly the top here, it pulled back to that area there, bottoms of candles, tops and candles, tops of candles, more tops before it became the bottom here. And so we haven't been back down there since May, and we came back in exactly to the area which I marked up, if you look, almost on the dot, and rejected it outright. So that has been in place for some time. So let's go into the hourly, just to confirm we are still in a daily downtrend, putting in a series of lower lows and lower highs. This potentially could be a lower low now, and we did talk about maybe it pulling back up into this area. And if we look at the fibs for the daily, this area around here is the 50, this is the golden zone, so between 50% and 618, the 618, quite an important area for a pullback. No coincidence it happens to be around that area as well, and this area here, so potentially we could see a bit of a pullback, and which we need a healthy pullback on the daily because we are pretty extended from the 50, the 20 and the 8 moving average, so we are due a bit of a pullback. Will today give us that pullback? We won't know until we see, but I'm going to remain neutral on the day. There's a couple of areas I'm watching for potential positions today. So let's get rid of the fibs. Going into the hourly time frame. Don't know if you can see it, there's a potential head and shoulders pattern. So we've got the left shoulder here, we've got the head here, and potentially setting up, even though we pulled back, this right hand shoulder. We need to make the neckline, and I would probably, the neckline needs to be made. We've got this funny shaped neckline, so potentially it's not a great head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders pattern, but it's one to be wary of. And look at this big volume yesterday as well, which could potentially signal the end in volume, end of a trend. So we need to keep an eye on. So if we break, areas to watch, let's get rid of this. Areas to watch on the MES hourly, break of the pre-market high for potential break and retest, a potential rejection at yesterday's high, which is at 43.35 area for potential rejection. Again, we can watch that area for a break and retest if we see it, but it's selling. You can see we had numbers out at 8:30. It was jobless claims, GDP, and actual forecast, so it's as forecasted, and jobless claims, actual 204, forecast 215, so it hasn't gone up by as much as expected, which will probably explain why we saw the initial push down. It went all the way back up and came back down again, so we're pretty much back to where we started now. So on the hourly we're looking bearish still, although we have this increased volume we just discussed. So we need to bear this in mind, because it's more volume on these few hours here than we've had. Let's go back until we made that major break. So quite significant volume to keep an eye on. So just to recap the levels, I'm going to be watching for a potential break and retest, and this is assuming this head and shoulders pattern plays out. Potential re-break of the pre-market high, and that'll be around 43.25 area. So let me just put a line in there, and we would have to break and hold above this 50 moving average. So that's what we're looking for, a break, retest of this area. It's above the 50 then, and we could start seeing a change of trend. If we see lots of selling, then I'm probably watching this area. Lots of buying, so potentially watching 43.62 for a potential rejection. And the bit in between, I could possibly, so this will be a higher probability rejection, and we've got a lower probability.
Good morning.
Oh, hang on, close that. And this could be a lower probability rejection here at 43.44, 43.45. And again, a high risk rejection then at 43.35. So the further away it is, the more likely it is. And what I'm looking for as well is for where we had bigger momentum. So here we came out to the area and we saw a big push down, potentially here as well. Up here on the daily we had a big push down, and obviously this is a big area, 4,500, we had this massive push down. So these are the areas, and that's why I consider these as higher probability rejections, rather than looking at these areas here, because we didn't have much of a push down. In fact, yesterday and pretty much just gone sideways. So this is a higher risk. Yesterday's high, potentially higher risk as well, but we did see that big reaction to that level. So potentially 43.35 is a slightly higher probability play, but you have to play that with confirmation. Whereas these areas here, I'll be looking to get in with start positions. So that's the difference, and that's how I see the difference between getting in on a demand zone or getting in on support and resistance. I think that's it really. Bounce wise, I'm watching yesterday's low for a bounce, and exactly where we were, the daily level and the 200 moving average on the daily, and it's in this demand zone. So if we can get back down to this area as well, I'll be watching for a potential bounce, and that area will be around 42.85, and obviously we've got the psychological number 4300 to keep an eye on, and that's where we've been. That's where the shoulders are, around this area here and this area here, 4300. So potentially, yeah. So if we do break this shoulder, then it's not a head and shoulders pattern anymore, and we'll be coming down probably to this area. Excuse me. So that's it really. Just to quickly sum up, MES levels. We got higher probability rejection at 43.62 and 43.78, and obviously at 4400, nice psychological number. We've got higher risk rejections at these lower numbers, 43.25, 43.35, and potentially at 43.34, but that's the lows from a couple of days ago. But they're higher risk, so they're with confirmation. And we've got a higher probability bounce here, and that's purely based on the daily setup, and that is at 42.80 to 4300, this area here. I think that's it. So So that's really what I'm watching for. I'm only going to be really watching for a double bottom here and probably a break and retest. They're the main ones. So let's look at SPY. Again, similar to the MES and the ES, we've got this potential head and shoulders. We haven't completed the pattern yet. It's not a head and shoulders until it makes this neckline area. But it's got to get over this area of resistance, which is 428, and it's got to close above this 50 moving average to show us a change of trend. But potentially a break and retest at 428, 430, maybe this area here. What is that? 429.50. No, I quite like 430, 431 as a potential rejection area. So this area around here, and I would say that's slightly high probability rejection purely because we've got higher concentrated volume. If I zoom in, the volume should probably change. Yeah, look at that. So that's 426. We've got higher volume down here. We've got higher volume up here as well. So this is the area to watch for, 430. So potentially around here, that's what I'm watching for. Okay, and then if we're going to be showing a bit of a bearish start, then if we come down to this double bottom, same as MES, into the demand zone, 423 to 422.30 area as a potential bounce. That's all I'd be watching for today on SPY, Qs. Same patterns as you can see. So I'll just read out where we're looking. Low is 351.30 area for a potential bounce. You could look at that area as well if we come down. Obviously it invalidates the head and shoulders patterns if we come back down to here. Pre-market high 356 for a potential break and retest or a higher risk rejection. And then we've got this demand zone at 359 for potential rejection. And of course this area up here at 370, and you can see this big sell-off we had. So this is a big area to watch for, and you can tell that by the volume as well. Nasdaq. So this is the daily. So the Nasdaq on the daily, as we said earlier, we got this bottom tail. Volume, however, wasn't really high, but the size of the candle is roughly the same size as the previous candle, so it's slightly above average. Volume wise, nothing significant, but we could be looking for a little bit of a pullback over the coming days. Let's do the 6 month, let's do the fibs on this again. So if we do pull back, we're looking for potentially around this area, maybe retest the bottoms of these candles. So this entire area, which is 15,300, nice round number as well, has a potential rejection. 15,500 if we get up to this area. It's another area, and obviously until we break this pivot, we're still in a daily downtrend. So we could see a bit of a pullback and then continuation. Let's look at the hourly. As we discussed in the previous charts, we've got the low as a potential bounce, and don't forget all these lows, even though we said potential bounce is more probable. We've got the 200s quite far away on the Nasdaq as well, so potentially if the Nasdaq breaks this area, then we could, that is logically the next area, 14,000, which is a nice round number, and on the chart that looks a bit like, look at that. So come into this area here as we pulled back, so we've retested 14,000 at one point. When was that? Back in May. So if we do break down through today's low, Nasdaq will probably take the market with it. So it's got some way to go, and there's not much left until we get to that area. So this is a bit of a void actually. So if we break down through this area, potentially we've got somewhere in the middle, but we've got a bit of a void before we get down to 14,000. So same plays on here as well. a bounce off of the bottom or a break and retest. We've got the left and right shoulder. This could be the right hand shoulder being formed right now, and we'll have the neckline. If we create the neckline, a break and retest of the pre-market, happen to be pre-market highs as well, and then we will be above the 50, and then we've got relatively higher probability rejection at 14,870, and then the next area of 15,000, and that's higher probability, and it's a nice round number. Last but not least, oil. We're finally starting to get that turnaround. Let's go into the daily first. We've been keeping an eye on this for some time. Volume wise, we've had increased volume over the last few days, so increased volume there, but candles has not really been, so let's just compare that candle there. So it's a narrow range candle relatively, but if you compare that to the last narrow range candle, you've got much higher volume, twice the volume, but the same size candle, so we know there's some weakness setting up. The sellers and buyers are having a fight at this area, and all these topping tails, and then we got this topping tail today as well, and maybe this is the last push on high volume as well. When we say high volume, we compare it to the previous day, previous few days. So this is the volume from yesterday. It's a wider range bar than the previous bars, but it's similar volume, so there's just not as much commitment from the buyers there as they were from the buyers and sellers fighting out here. So potentially we're seeing some weakness. And anything else to note? No, so we've broken this daily level. I'm just going to go on to the weekly. Still in a weekly uptrend, so we can't think about shorting it until the weekly breaks really, and the daily breaks. This area was the important area. We've broken through it, so the next test is whether we hold above this area and continue to trend up, or whether we've just poked through it and we're rejecting it. So at the moment we've got this doji bar, it's undecided. We've got 2 days to go for this candle to complete. Go back into daily. Market's not even open yet, and we've had half the volume today and a small candle, so potentially if you look at the volume for this candle, goes back to these days, we've not had the market yet, and it's matching the volume from when it's consolidating, so potentially we might see a bigger volume day. If we were to break down and not hold above this daily level, then I'm still watching 84.84 for potential bounce, this area here, and 80.14, so basically this entire area as a potential bounce area. But I don't think we can go long just yet or short until we see something, but let's put that in there. And that's the channel we're currently in. So we've got to break down through this pivot. If we break 88, then we could start to see a bit of a change or trend coming down. Okay, so that's it really. I'll just go back to MES. Let's look at the 5 minute for a second. Hovering around this demand zone. I've been tempted a few times today just to go long. Would have worked if I did go long every time, but a bit risky because it's pre-market, and just waiting for the volume starting to pick up now as well. But I'm going to wait until the market opens to make a decision. I might just wait and see which direction it wants to go, because right now there's no real direction. It's just going sideways. It's just in this range. So potentially, like I said, if we can get down to this area, I'll be looking for a potential bounce, 42.83, with a potential stop at the below of yesterday's low, 42.77. And then a break and retest of this area, 40, so we come back up and retest long, and we've got the target, and if we're in long, then we've got some targets already we can play for as well. So that's it. Keep it nice and simple. Okay, thank you for watching. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and I will see some of you in our live trading room. Thanks for watching.